His kids came to him terrified and told him they saw Bigfoot. He laughed it off. He didn't believe them. But years later, in Ohio, he realized something that still keeps him up at night. What if they were telling the truth? Tonight, on Myths, Monsters, and Mullets, we dive into Bigfoot sightings, forgotten history, and the moment he realized he should have listened.
Out in the woods, shadows creep slow. Footprints deep where no man should go. Cold winds howl through hollers and brooks. Whispers of Bigfoot in the way it looks. Myths, monsters, and bullets in the night. Under a pale moon, strange glowing light. Truth out there like a blade it cuts. Myths, monsters, and mullets run amok.
Welcome back to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets, the show where the strange, the unexplained, and the weird take center stage, and where the people behind the encounters matter just as much as the encounters themselves. We're not here just to talk about what was seen. We're here to understand who saw it, how it changed them, and why it still matters. Before we dive in, quick shout out to our supporters over on Patreon. If you want to help keep the show independent, ad-free, and unapologetically weird, head over to Patreon for members-only episodes, early access to public episodes, and bonus material you won't see or hear anywhere else. If you've had an encounter or something weird you've just never been able to explain, I want to hear from you. Email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. That's mythsandmullets@gmail.com. Your experience can be featured on a future episode. Don't forget to mark your calendars, June 6th, 2026. I'll be speaking at the Arkansas Cryptid Fest in North Little Rock, Arkansas. If you're into cryptids, folklore, and listening to great speakers, that's where you need to be. If you haven't yet, make sure you're subscribed, leave us a review, share the show with a friend who lives for the unexplained. That's the only way we can grow. And welcome back to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. I am your host, John Methencamp. On tonight's show, we have somebody I met at the Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree. He come up to my table and said, "Man, you got an awesome mullet." And but no, he is an author of Bigfoot in the Saddle, and he was kind enough to send me a copy of the book. James Fyreman, how you doing tonight?
Good, good. Thanks for having me here, John.
Absolutely, absolutely. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm here in Central Ohio. I'm in a little town called Bell Fountain. It's about an hour west of Columbus, and I've been an Ohioan for most of my life. Actually, I was born in California, moved here as a very young person, and when I graduated high school, I spent about a decade in Chicago. And my wife and I, we met and married there, had kids, and we wanted to raise our kids in more of a rural setting. So we left Chicago back in 2001, and I moved back here. I started a career as I've been a career firefighter, paramedic since 2001, and I started right after 9/11. Was now I was already in the process before that event took place, but my introduction to the fire service was right immediately after the big rush. Uh, it seemed like everyone wanted to be police or fire or joining into the military. So I got in at a time where it was so crowded. A lot of people were not even really able to get into the business. Now it's far different now. To a couple decades on, we're at a point where literally there are fire chiefs that show up at graduation ceremonies to offer jobs to people as they're walking off the podium, and it wasn't that way at first, you know. So that's what I've been doing for the last 24 years, and I've been writing all my life. I've just always been someone that I've had a huge imagination. I was a kid back in the 70s when all the great stuff was going on. $6 Million Man, Star Wars. I was 7 years old when the original Star Wars came out. That was prime time for a 7 year old. Battlestar Galactica, all the stuff we love. And so with I would watch movies, watch TV shows, read books, and then I just always wanted to create my own. I've been creating my own um, since then. But in the last few years, I started publishing. I've had now two books that have been published, and so my first one several years ago was Breaker Ford's Adventures in Space, and that's straight up comedy. He's a space trucker, and he's on his first hauling run across the galaxy. Falls in love with the beautiful Princess Babe, but he has to rescue her from the evil alien dictator Lord Preposterous. And
That,
Breaker and his
that
gang
book's
is
about me.
yeah. That's why I've had a number of sales to guys that they say, "Hey, I'm a trucker. I have to buy this book," and it's a fun book, and it's done very well. And my latest book, as you said, that just came out in March, and that's the Bigfoot in the Saddle. And one of my other loves is westerns and Bigfoot, and I put them together here in this past year. And this book is again has done really well, and I'm very happy with it. It what I had envisioned really came out in the story.
Yeah. So did you ever have like a Bigfoot encounter? I know you said you were from California. You live in Ohio. Did you ever have a Bigfoot encounter?
Well, I'll tell you, one of my uh, I don't know when I first was introduced to Bigfoot. I know it was probably around the time Steve Austin, the $6 Million Man, took on Bigfoot on TV. I remember we watched that, and that just burned a hole right into my brain. And in elementary school, we had a school library. You could go in, like on a Monday, you could go in and spend a half hour looking for books, and then you could check them out and return them to the school library, that Friday or whatnot. And they had a bunch of books on cryptid type things. They had horror books about Dracula and Frankenstein, and they had the Loch Ness monster and books about Bigfoot. And I was always checking out those same books, so I was fascinated right off by that. And while I was still in elementary school, so there was already the fascination. And then it was 1980. Uh, there was a rash of Bigfoot sightings in our county, Logan County. So in our town and the towns around, uh, I just remember every day people started talking. My grandparents, my family, kids at school, everyone was talking about, hey, there's another Bigfoot sighting. It was showing up in the papers. So every time there was a Bigfoot sighting, it would be in the papers. Hey, here's another one, and he was going around. Uh, he was hitting the farms and eating chickens, tearing up chickens, eating grain. Um, and it was such a big sensation. You would drive down Main Street in our small town, and the restaurants, they'd have the signs that say Bigfoot stop here or Bigfoot eats here. As a kid, I was like, oh my goodness. Every day I couldn't wait to hear if there was another report, look in the paper, see if there was something else. And I remember standing at my window thinking, man, Bigfoot, come on. I'd be standing there at night thinking, you got to pass by. You're so close. You got to come by. So I never got to see him. But that period of time where all the sightings were taking place was a super exciting time for me. And then just in the last couple of years, my wife and I went to the Historical Society in our county, and I did not realize this. They had an area dedicated to that period of Bigfoot sightings. They had the plaster casts of the footprints. They had the old newspaper clippings. They had the encounters that were transcribed from some of the farmers and folks. And I'm looking at that going, oh my goodness, this is it. This was what happened. I was in 1980.
You say that was at the Logan County Historical Society?
That's right. Yeah.
Huh. Might have to make a trip. That ain't very far.
Yeah. No, it's not very far. They have it's in one corner uh, of the room, and they have the cabinet that's got, like I said, plaster casts and different things from the time period. Yeah.
Wow. Bell Fountain is known as being the first paved road in America.
Yeah. First concrete street in America.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
A little bit of
used to
useless
be,
information.
yeah. I don't know if it's still true. It used to be also the world's shortest street.
Really?
Yeah, so I got a picture of me and my wife and another couple with them and their kids and our kids. We were able to all join hands and span the length of the street.
Oh wow. Wow. I didn't know that one. That would I like weird little facts, especially when they're about Ohio.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm learning things today and I like that. Was Bell Fountain also where the first car crash in Ohio was?
I haven't heard that.
So at one point there was only 2 cars in Ohio and they crashed. And I want to say it was in Bell Fountain, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong on
I'll have to look into that. I've
that.
never heard
Somebody
that.
fact check me.
Yeah, I've never heard that one. We were the home of Blue Jacket, the Indian
Mhm.
chief, and we were let's see, Bell Fountain was a big railroad hub back in the day, big railroad hub, and also we're real proud that we're the highest point in Ohio.
That's right.
We're the
Right,
peak of
like a
Ohio.
mountain.
So yeah, Mad River Mountain.
Yeah.
Now that's not saying much compared to our elevation compared to other areas of the country.
And you wouldn't and really you go to Bell Fountain and yeah, Mad River Mountains. It's not a mountain, it's a big hill. But you know, but when you get down to like Southeast Ohio, the hills are much taller. So, when you're going through that Bell Fountain area, it's like, well, this doesn't look very high, but it is. And it's all because of geological, the ice sheet pushing up uh, the tundra and stuff like that. And I don't know. I'm making shit up now.
Well, if you're familiar, this area we have the Ohio Caverns, and
Yes. Been there
that
several
is
times.
really that is something. When you go down in there, it is really impressive.
Yeah. And then that area also has the castles. What are they called?
Yep, the castles. There's the uh, Piat Piat castles and the Zanesfield castles. Yeah, and the Mad River Mountain doesn't seem that high. People that really are into skiing, if they're in the area, they stop and they go, "Look, this is a hill. It's not a mountain." But when I used to work for the fire department in that area, I work the department I'm with now is further east. But when I was at the department in Logan County, we were at during ski season. We would be there every night picking up people that got uh, broken in pieces trying to go down the hill, and they we always thought it was funny is, of course, they served alcohol and they had no restriction. So you could come in there and you say, "Hey, I'm going to go down your Black Diamond Death area, and I've never been on skis before, and hand me a Jack Daniels while I'm doing it." And they'd be like, "Here you go." And we were picking up people all the time.
Wow. So let's talk about the book a little more.
Sure.
The one that that you sent me, Bigfoot in the Saddle. Um, Tell us a little bit about it.
So it is a Western, uh, but it's a Western with Bigfoot. So it's set in 1889, Northern California. And of course, every good Western story has a greedy banker. And the banker, George Milch, wants to turn the town of Eagletooth into a railroad hub and make it big time. So when they start laying track through the forest, Bigfoot starts tearing up the track. And of course, Milch feels like he's just a mangy forest creature. He doesn't care anything about him. He says all he's doing is he's disrupting progress and shorting me on my money because I can't get the railroad put through. So his fix is, we got this big monster out here. I'll hire a gang of the West's most notorious violent gunfighters. I'll pay them to go hunt down Bigfoot and kill him, and we can go on with business as usual. So the gang of the Old West killer gunfighters head out to eliminate Bigfoot, and one of the gunfighters is the Raspberry Kid. Now, the Raspberry Kid actually has a conscience, and when he realizes, they make contact with Bigfoot, and he realizes Bigfoot isn't just some rabid coyote. He's an intelligent being, and Bigfoot is just trying to protect his home because he's, in the sense he's being invaded. The Raspberry Kid joins forces with Bigfoot and turns against the gang of outlaws. So it's Bigfoot and the Kid taking on this outsized gang of killers, and Bigfoot is intelligent. So he's not just a rambling animal, and he picks up very quickly. So once he sees weapons being used against him, and once he gets his hands on some of these weapons, he is actually very proficient. So he really becomes a gunfighter and joined together, like I said, with the Kid. And from that point on, it's just it's a hunt for Bigfoot. It's a hunt for the outlaws, and it's both gangs going against each other. And on Bigfoot and the Kid's side, they have Moondance, who is a Native American tracker, and the outlaws hired him to get him up into the woods to find Bigfoot. But their prejudice against him made him an outsider. He joins Bigfoot and the Raspberry Kid. Also, one of the railroad construction workers is a Chinese man named Feng Wang. And Feng Wang, as we know, back in the olden days there, a lot of the Chinese immigrants worked on building the tracks for the railroads. He had a Bigfoot encounter when Bigfoot is tearing up the tracks. So again, he was brought along with the outlaws to help in connecting with Bigfoot again. But because of prejudice, he was an outsider. He joins Bigfoot, Moondance, the Raspberry Kid, and the Kid falls in love with the beautiful town school teacher, Snowy Winters. And Snowy Winters, the problem there is she detests violence and gunfighting. She is about bringing civilization to the West. So there's this troubled love story between her and the Raspberry Kid, because the Kid is a gunman, and it's going to take guns to get them out of this tough spot they're in with the outlaw gang. And so you have the outlaw gang, you have the Bigfoot gang, and there is a theme beyond just all the action and adventure that's running through there. There is a theme of family and belongingness to this, because the Bigfoot gang, all of them coming from these different backgrounds, they all are in their own way outsiders from the main of society, and it draws them together as a family. And you see throughout the story people seeking connection with each other. Even on the outlaw side, you will see. So the gang is headed up by Tex Kilborn, and he's the deadliest gunfighter in the West.
And with a great name for that too.
Yeah, Tex Kilborn. I was inspired by Colonel Kilgore from Apocalypse Now.
Yeah,
But Tex is renowned in gunfighting circles for being the most violent, vicious, and merciless gunfighter out there. And uh, one of the guys in his gang actually he left his family to become a gunfighter because he was such a fan of Tex and to be on his gang. And he wants to be accepted. He's in the gang, but he wants to be accepted by Tex. And of course, nobody's good enough for Tex. Um, but there's that undercurrent through the whole story about belongingness and family and connection. And I think sometimes those deeper themes, it makes a better story than just one that's just superficial. Hey, we'll go from one spot to another and have shootouts and this sort of
right,
thing.
right. So it's not just action. It's kind of like the Princess Bride. It's
Yeah.
got a little bit of everything,
Well, it's funny you say that because Princess Bride, of course, we all know the movie was originally a book.
right?
William Goldman wrote the book for his kids. He's also the author of Bush Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, the movie with
Right.
Paul Newman and Robert Redford. The book, I love them both. In some ways, the book is better than the movie because it's longer. There's more to it, and his writing style. You're invested in these characters. It's a comedy, but you're invested. There's some weight to it, and it's just a beautiful book. So it's funny you say that because he's one of my idols as far as a writer.
Wow. I mean, I like the movie, but I never read the book. I knew it was a book, but I never read it. You ever you ever aspire to having your book made into a movie?
Uh, seems like a dream too far away to imagine. So my I put I put food on the table by my job as a firefighter paramedic, and writing is my love. And when I do the books and I go to the shows and I meet people, uh, I always say anybody who's any type of a creator or an artist, when you create art, you create it because you want to share it. You want to share it with others, and it's not about making money. Maybe there's people that want to try and make money off of their craft, but um, for me, the joy is always sharing something that came from my mind, and then it's in somebody else's life. It's in their world in some way. People come back and they go, "Oh, I love your book so much. I got to buy a copy for a friend of mine." And I think, wow, that I connected with those people in some way. Um, I really would it be great if it was turned into a movie? Sure. And I've had some people go, this reads like a movie. It could be made into a movie. Uh, but whether it is or not, I think that would be hitting the lottery. And then if it was a movie that if you as a writer of the original story that you approved of, you hear so many horror stories of people having their work translated to film, and then the initial author is like, I renounce this movie. I hate it. It's terrible. It's not
Yeah.
my original vision.
Yeah, Stephen King did that. He got
Yeah.
tired of all his movies getting screwed up, and I think the last straw for him was, Lawnmower Man. Because if you ever read
Oh,
the
okay.
story, The Lawnmower Man, it had nothing to do with AI and, you know, going into a computer or anything like that. Like, it literally had the only thing that the story had in common with the movie was there was a guy it was a doctor who needed his yard mowed. That was basically the only thing that and then they stuck Stephen King's name on it, and he's like, "What?" So that's why from about then on, Stephen King was, he had to write the screenplay, and he was involved with everything, and I think I would want that too, because this
Yeah.
is my vision. I don't want somebody coming in and screwing up my story, yeah, that would tick me off.
You hear that so much, and I've heard that too about the author. I can't think of his name. He wrote the Hunt for Red October and the Jack Ryan series,
Tom Clancy.
Tom Clancy, and how infuriated he was over some of the adaptations of his books. And when it was in the papers or in the news at some point over one of those, that he was like, "Oh, this isn't me at all. I hate this." And the movie producer said, "Well, you weren't hating it when you signed the contract to get a
Well,
couple million
yeah.
dollars for this." So there is that trade off. If you're gonna stand your ground and say, "I have to have the final word on this," you might be spoiling the deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Money talks, and it's for a writer or any kind of content creator, that all those zeros show up in front of you. You think, well, you know what? It might be worth losing my vision for this for a life of luxury. I know if anybody's listening and they want to make my life into a movie, I will sign off. You can use John Methencamp. That's fine. Just make sure there's a lot of zeros at the end of that check and on the correct side of the decimal point.
And I agree. And if anybody wants to make Bigfoot in the Saddle into a movie, call me. We will talk about it. And
All those movie producers that watch my show, they're probably like, yeah, we're doing both.
I've felt that way for years. I grew up as a comic book fan, and I've always been, and in a sense, I'm a comic book purist, right? So what I see on the page is what I always want to see in the movies, and it rarely ever translates that way. So I'm one of
Right.
those guys that's always frustrated. That's like, it's not like this in the book. Why not just translate it like the book? Uh, so
I think some books though, there's too much in the book. Like it would have to be like a mini series or like a 12 book or 12 movie deal to get everything out of the book. Like one of my favorite books of all time is The Stand by Stephen King.
sure, yeah, yeah.
They did that miniseries back in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s. It was okay, but they had to cut so much of it, and that was like a 4-part miniseries. They tried to get as much as they could in. The new adaptation of it, they got more of the stuff in, but they still missed so much. Because to put a book and keep everything in, people don't realize, you can't get that all in an hour and a half or 2 hours, whatever.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Well, one of my absolute favorite books and movies is Papillon, if anybody remembers that. So it was the
I
Steve
do.
McQueen prison escape movie in the early 70s is when they did that, and it was based on the supposed true story of a prisoner on Devil's Island that uh, he spent, I don't know, 13, 14 years trying to escape and eventually did that, and then he wrote a memoir. And I have the book. It's one of my favorite books, and the movie is one of my favorites. But when you read the book, and I just read it again for another time, uh, it's a tome. I mean, it is huge. He's
Mhm.
compiling 14 years in the French prison system into this book. There, like you said, there is no way you could put that into a movie. And in the movie, I think it's brilliant. The screenwriter, he really just took uh, little vignettes and kind of uh, he would mix two different scenes from the book together, and but it's giving you the feeling. And I was like, I'm sure a purist could go, hey, this isn't really how the story played out exactly. Even the timeline from the movie in the book, some things in the book happen before or after the way it's done in the movie, or vice versa. But you have to, like you said, you've got a finite time frame where you have to get this stuff in, and you're just kind of creating impressions. sort of a collage. I thought they did really well with that one.
So how long did it take you to write Bigfoot in the Saddle?
Bigfoot in the Saddle is so I've got a list of story ideas, and Bigfoot in the Saddle had sat on my list for a while. I was actually working on another story when I thought, I don't know why. I don't know why I thought I just got to do Bigfoot. So when I started on Bigfoot, it took me about a year, and that was working truly every day. Like I said, I have a day job. So one of the things that I do is to just carve out solid hours of time to be setting and writing in a notepad or typing it into your uh, computer doesn't doesn't work for me in reality. But we have these things, cell phones, and if I was anytime, if had a moment of downtime, I'm thinking about scenes in the book, and I can just go into the notepad and just type it in. And it's 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and I just, by the end of the day, you've got pages of work in there. So that's pretty much primarily how I wrote it, was not in big blocks of time.
Gotcha. Did you say before we started the recording that you have another book coming out, or you're working on another book?
Well, I'm working on several books. So uh, overall, I have Breaker Ford. The first one, Breaker Ford's Adventures in Space. I'm working on a follow up for that one, and that one is going to be Breaker Ford Runs Out of Space. So, what happens if you reach the edge of the universe? What's on the other side? What's there? So, if you're a space trucker and you get off the beaten path, uh, what kind of adventures do you have when you run out of space? So, that one's in the works. A follow up for Bigfoot in the Saddle is Bigfoot Rides Again, of course, and I have the outline for that one. I am I have 95% done a standalone adventure story um, set on the continent of Atlantis, and this takes place in the days just prior to World War II, and some survivors of a shipwreck end up on the island, and they run into uh, the remnants of the Atlantean civilization, who have a far superior uh, uh, grasp of science than we do. But it's just prior to World War II. So when some Germans in a U-boat show up and they want to take control of this science, there's going to be problems. That one's about 95% done. Now I have been in just the last couple months. I have started on uh, another standalone adventure story, and this one is called Nazis on Ice, and this is set in the
Wait, wait.
Mason.
You might want to rethink that. I mean, that was from History of the World Part One.
Was it Nazis on Ice?
Yeah, at the very end. At the very end of yeah, watch History of the
Okay,
World
I'll have to
Part
watch that.
One, and right at the very end it said coming soon, History of the World Part Two, and I think it said hit Nazis on Ice.
Oh, dang it, dang it. Well, see, that happens. But this is an adventure where a professor and some adventurers, they find that the Nazis after the war truly did set up uh, a new place down in Antarctica,
Yeah.
and they're going to relaunch their Reich from there. So
You'll be okay then, because the one at the end of History of the World Part One, it was actually ice skating.
okay. Well, that's
You-
something I've ran into that over the years. In I'll use a name of a weapon or a chapter title or something, and then I'll see that it actually exists in the entertainment world somewhere else. And I guess there's only so many ideas in the world, but
Well, I
You
think
know, and
sometimes too that, people they'll hear something and their brain will remember it, but their conscious mind doesn't remember it. So then
yeah,
a little bit later, something else sparks that memory and they think, oh man, I just made that up. You probably heard it.
yeah, well, that's probably true. Yeah, there's a lot of that's kind of leads into the like the Mandela effect.
Yeah. Yeah. You just remembering it wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Now,
then people start thinking, oh yeah, I remember that too. And they don't really. It's just it's I don't know. The only one that I agree with is the cornucopia. Fruit of the loom
yeah,
cornucopia. I remember the cornucopia, and people have shown pictures of the cornucopia on labels and stuff. So I think that's just a big psyop.
yeah, I think so too. And I've seen some people. I was watching somebody going on about how uh, they tried to pull something with C-3PO from the Star Wars movies that now they're showing him. If you look at supposed old pictures of him, one of his a gold body, but one leg is white.
Mhm.
And I heard some folks really going on, going, it was never white. It was never white. And I'm going, hey, I've got some of the books from back in the day. They were printed in the day, and he had a white leg. And as a kid back then, I remember looking at it, going, oh, that's kind of cool. They gave him a white leg.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think what it is people think back to the movie, and a lot of it's done. A lot of the scenes with C-3PO is they're in the desert, and 1980s film wasn't as good as, or 1970s film wasn't as good as what we're used to today. So it wasn't as clear. The colors did kind of blend together. So that silver kind of just got muted out with the color of the sand and then blending in with his body and stuff. I remember it as silver.
yeah, I remember they had a picture of him and R2D2 on the back of the book, and it was as white as you can get.
Yeah, yeah. Did you ever read Douglas Adams?
I started Hitchhiker's Guide, and I could not get into it. Now,
Really?
yeah, and that's not to say that it's not a good. Of course, people love him. Um, it could have been me at the time, because there's movies and books that at one point I start them
Yeah.
or finish them, and I go, I've walked out of movies uh, with my son and my friends, and they go, "What did you think?" And I go, I didn't like it. And then later, for whatever reason, um, in the time intervening, my opinions changed, or I had a better meal before I watched it or something, and I liked it better.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens too. Your tastes change over the years. I know mine have. What I considered, comedy gold back when I was 20 years old. Now I'm looking back like, yeah, that was dumb.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe I was just dumb.
I would be quick to say, yes, I was dumb. I would be quick to say that. And if I am able to live, if I live another 20, 30 years, I'll look back on myself right now and go, wow, that guy in 2025, eh, boy, he was stupid. Where I think I'm so much better now than I was, 15, 20 years ago.
Right. Right. Have you ever had any like paranormal encounters or anything?
Uh, well, as far as Bigfoot, let me say, I I I think we came really close. And this is not the 1980 story where he's ransacking the farms. When we first moved back, when Fran and I moved back from the city, we moved back into a small little house on a it was a trout fishing uh, complex, and we were the caretakers there, and we were in the middle of nowhere. So we had a little small house. We were the caretakers, so they had a lodge in the back for members who could uh, fly fishing, uh, do fly fishing for trout. And it was very isolated because the people that were members of this club were, um, it was exclusive. They didn't advertise it. You had to be handpicked and asked. And these were not really sportsmen in the sense. So the trout streams were stocked. They'd bring trucks in and they'd stock it so that every time you threw your line in, you were pulling out a fish. And it had a beautiful lodge. They could sign it out for the week or weekend and stay there with them and their friends. And they wanted nobody coming back and interfering or messing with them. So we were the caretakers there. We didn't own the place. We were just caretakers in the little house up front. And very isolated place. So I was working for the fire department still. I came home from a shift one day and we worked 24 hours in the fire department. And my son and daughter, who were still, I bet they were maybe 6, 7 years old. They had been playing in the streams and all that back behind the house. And when I came home, they said, Dad, we got to tell you, you got to come out here and see this. We saw Bigfoot. We saw Bigfoot. And this is looking back going, how could I be so dumb? My first thought was, oh, you kids are trying to play a trick on Dad. And so we go back there and I'm having them repeat the story. Well, what happened? Well, we were skipping rocks in the stream and we're back in the middle of nowhere. And there was this, we looked up and on the other side of the stream, we heard noise and there was a big furry kind of reddish haired body and it was looking at us and then it took off. And I said, okay, well, what did he look like? He was reddish fur. He had 2 legs standing upright on his back legs, but he was kind of hidden by all the brush and all this. And I said, well, could you have mistaken it? Could it have been a deer? Plenty of deer back there. And there's all kinds of animals and critters about in this area. And no, Dad, it was Bigfoot. It was like a man with reddish hair, and he's looking at us. And I said, okay, let's go see, we don't see Bigfoot. And then they go, and he left footprints by the stream. So I know, again, whoever is hating me for this, you're going to look back on yourself at one point and go, oh, how could I have done that? And there was a footprint by the stream.
Really?
And for whatever reason, whether I'd been up too long taking runs at the firehouse, or I just hadn't had breakfast or whatever, I thought, you little tykes are trying to pull a fast one and you made a footprint here. And there was a footprint. And I was like, come on, you guys you're trying to pull a fast one on Dad. And they go, no, we didn't. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. And so nothing ever came of it. But when I wrote the Bigfoot book, they finally gave up. They were like, well, Dad's not going to believe us. And when I wrote the Bigfoot book here last year, my kids, they're adults now, 27, 25 years old. And they said, Dad, why didn't you believe us when we told you? And we were kids. We weren't trying to trick you.
Wow.
So that's one of those dope kind of moments. And I believe them.
Sounds like they need to come on Miss Monsters and Mullets.
Well, they would probably be able to, if they had an eye to eye with Bigfoot, yeah, they'd probably have a better story than I do.
Yeah. Wow. How about ghosts or UFOs?
Now, I can't say that I have personally had these experiences. If we're getting into the weird spiritual stuff, I know people that I trust that have run into it. And the only time that I can say I experienced something that I think it was otherworldly in a spiritual sense. So I have been a Christian since 1986, and I believe the Bible. and I believe that I've been born again by the Spirit of God. Uh, just prior to that time, as a teenager, I was going through a very, very difficult time of life. As many teenagers, or anybody who's ever existed on the planet, is going to have trouble in their life. But I was going through a very difficult time. And, uh, well, I'll just tell you what happened. I So in this period, I started started reading the Bible, and I was like, I don't even know what I'm reading. It was like reading a Chinese dictionary. Like I don't know what this is even about, but I knew I was uh, struggling with life, and uh, it was during, I couldn't tell you who was playing that year. It was during the World Series, and I went to bed, and I was very, like I said, I'd been reading the Bible, and I went to bed in a really depressed uh, state, and I was. Uh, it sounds crazy, but it's what it was. I was laying flat on my back, and I've heard since people talk about this sort of a thing where it was like I was paralyzed. I do not believe I was asleep. I do not believe it. Uh, I was flat on my back. I couldn't see anything. I'm assuming my eyes were closed, but my mind was awake. It was pure black. And then a black figure started towards me, the shape of a man, started towards me, and I could see who's merely a silhouette. And I couldn't explain how I could see him in the dark. He was pure black. Everything else was pure black, but it wasn't like there was a light behind him, but I could see him coming towards me in the darkness. And as he came closer towards me, I'm thinking, this is really terrifying. This is not good, and I'm not dreaming this. And as he came closer, I saw he had his hand behind his back. Everything is totally black. And then he reaches around from behind him, and he pulls out, he's holding a giant knife. And the knife was bright. So everything else was black. I couldn't see the handle. I couldn't see anything, but that knife was bright, and it was the sharpest thing I've ever seen in my life. Just looking at it was like you could feel it, like that. Oh, this is sharp, and it was real. I'm going to say again, I'm telling you and whoever else is listening, uh, this is my story. It sounds insane. Uh,
No, it
this
doesn't.
is this is what it was. And as he's coming towards me, I knew he's going to plunge that knife into me. And when he did, when I say I knew, it wasn't that I thought, it's I knew. If he puts that knife into me, I'm going to die on this bed, and they'll find my body here in the morning. Not that uh, I don't know that I wasn't a concept of, oh, I'll be all chopped up, bloody, like Freddy leaves the kids in the bed uh, uh, shredded. But it'd be like, oh, I don't know, he had a aneurysm or something in the night, and the kid died. But 100%, I still believe if he moved towards me and he plunged that knife into me, I would have died in that bed. And I was trying with all my might to move, and I was laying on the bed in that paralyzed state. And as he came closer at the last, I didn't know what to do. And at the last second, uh, not audibly, but it was like in my mind, I shouted as loud as I could, Jesus, disappeared. And I shot up in bed and was able to move. And I was so frightened that night. I remember getting out of bed, and I went and I turned on the TV, went in the living room, turned on the TV, and I watched the rest of the World Series game that night. And it was soon after that I believe I believed that I was saved by God's grace, and the Bible started making sense to me. When you read the Bible and it talks about there are spiritual beings that are our enemies, they bring confusion and death, and they do not want you to be connected to God. And I truly believe that that was an attempt in the spiritual world to take me out before I could be forgiven and connected with God. Uh, so I know that there are people that would naysay that story. And they go, "Ah, you were dreaming," or whatever. All I can say is, I'm sitting here telling you, I have not had an encounter with Bigfoot. I haven't seen a UFO. I haven't, I didn't even follow through when my kids showed me the Bigfoot, uh, the pressing into the mud. But this, that's my one experience where I'd go, no, this is what happened.
Wow. Um, did this shadow figure have a hat on?
No.
Okay. Because I don't know if you've ever heard of the Hat Man. It's kind of a new thing. Um, a lot there's been shadow figure these shadow people, these shadow figures reported forever. Over about the last 20 years, people are reporting him having hats. Like they can make out the brim of a hat. So I was just curious because you said this took place in the 80s.
Hmm.
Um, whether this creature had a hat. So I don't know what these things are. I can say this: I do believe you because what you're describing is exactly what I'm hearing from other people. Other than the knife, that's a new one.
Oh, okay.
Um, but that blacker than black or blacker than the dark, being able to make it look solid, but you can't really make out details, right? You couldn't see like a face or
Nope,
did
nothing.
you see any eyes or anything like glowing eyes or anything?
Oh, no, no, no. It was a
Yeah.
fully black figure.
Yeah, that's what people report to me. I've taken a ton of those kind of reports of shadow figures, and it's exactly what they have. But the knife thing, that's a new one to me. I like that actually.
That
It's
that
something
that
new.
knife was real, and I again, I stand by it that is it was it was gleaming, silver. You could see, couldn't see the handle, couldn't see the hilt, and it was so sharp. It was so sharp it hurt to look at it.
Wow,
Yeah.
holy cow! So when you say it was silver, was it like giving off its own light, or did it feel like it was just it was reflecting light?
That's a good question.
Because you said
So
it was dark in the room.
I would assume any light is something that's reflected from somewhere else.
I'm saying like if I hold up my phone, you can see this reflecting off of it, or was it actually emanating the light from the blade
Mm.
like a lightsaber? I don't know, I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
really a
yeah, yeah.
lightsaber, but like it was glowing.
Yeah, I would say it was more glowing, but uh it was steel. It presented as
Okay.
metal. It presented as steel.
Wow.
And the sharpness of it. I mean, I can still picture the shape of it, the size, the length of it. It wasn't serrated. It was smooth. Uh,
You know what I'm kind of picturing? Lord of the Rings, the Nazgul and their blade or whatever, how it kind of glowed. That's what I'm picturing in my head. But I could be way off.
but in that, I'm thinking it casts light.
Yes.
There was no, that was the only, it was the only uh, luminous, it was the only light. It wasn't casting off light from it.
It was the only thing you could make out in the dark.
Well, I could make out his form.
I mean, as far as like everything else, if you're in a dark room, you know, you can see shadows, you can kind of make things out, but you don't really see them like you would if the light was on. So, but did it look like the light was on in the room, but just on that blade? That's what I'm trying to get to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the blade itself was fully illuminated.
Okay, that now it's making sense to me. So, like, if you were seeing you photoshopped you photoshopped a sword into a dark room, but it left the lighting the same.
Yes,
That's how
yes,
I'm
that's
picturing.
good. Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be
Wow.
right. But and
Holy
the
cow.
thing I can't, I don't know how to articulate it. That he, the the figure, it was the figure of a slender man. Now I'm not saying he was emaciated, but it wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger looking. It was just a silhouette of a slender man, no features. It was all black. Everything that was in my field of vision behind him or around him was black. So for him to stand out, there would have to be some sort of an outline that's brighter than the background or his own bodily presence. But that wasn't the case.
Right.
There was no light, but he still stood out from uh, the environment around him.
Yep. That's exactly what people when they see these shadow figures, that's exactly what they report. And the sleep paralysis. You know, you hear that a lot too. Like I woke up, I couldn't move, and all I see is this black figure either standing over me or coming towards me or something like that that's blacker than the night. And so I believe you, dude. I hear
Oh,
these
thank
things
you.
all the
Yeah.
time, and that's an amazing story. That is amazing. I love it. Love it.
Well, I've told that story to my friends uh, that are Christians or people that have had uh, their own incidents like that. You know, because there's a lot of people you could say that to, and they would immediately just go, you know, nope, that just sounds too far fetched. That sounds like a movie. That was probably your mind or imagination. And I can, like I said before, all I can say is I know,
Yeah.
I know that was real, and I know if I hadn't been for whatever reason given the grace, and I only called out the name of Jesus, who, if you read the scriptures, had authority over the evil spirits.
Yeah.
Um, that if I hadn't been given the grace to shout out his name at the last minute, I was going to die in that bed.
Yeah. Wow.
Um, I know um, I went to school with a young man, a football player, healthy. Um, he died. They said it was an epileptic fit. Said he had some kind of a fit and died. Um, Now I'm not making any speculation on him, but I'm saying young people die, and it's not always in a car crash or something like that.
Right.
I look at that situation for myself and say they would have found me in bed, and there'd be no physical marks on. Now I know people that have described having spiritual encounters and having physical marks on them afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I can't rule that out, but my thought all these years has been that I would just be found, you know, and they'd go, who knows, maybe it was uh, congenital
undetected
heart
heart
defect.
extra.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. Because you hear that a lot, and it's like, okay, I mean, you can't. We don't know exactly what happened, but it seems convenient, and
right.
convenient that it was just an undetected heart murmur or something.
Well,
So,
I've always now I'm detouring here, so we can bring it back if you want, but it just reminds me of uh, I'm not an expert on this guy, so if you know more, maybe I'm totally off on this, but the Son of Sam killer.
I'm not I like, I know who he is. I haven't done a deep dive on him. No.
Well, from what I know, and this could be way off because I haven't either. Now I'm really into Jack the Ripper, so that's somebody that I've looked into a lot. Son of Sam, I haven't. I only know, um, more superficially. My understanding of Son of Sam is he was killing folks back in New York in the 70s, I think. And my understanding is that he claimed when they caught him, uh, they said, "Why did you do this?" And that some element of his story was that he lived alone and he had a dog. And he said, my dog, I'd come home and my dog would tell me, you have to go kill these people. And you hear that. And now somebody that knows more about Son of Sam may go, no, 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 we know, that's you missed it. That's not really it. That's my working thesis that I've always heard. And so I go, everybody goes, oh, that guy's clearly crazy. He's bonkers. Dogs don't talk. Now, I think, like I said, I believe the Bible. I'm a Bible believer. And there's the story of Jesus that he gets out of the boat and he goes into this uh, part of the land. There's an insane man who's actually demon possessed running around in the tombs. He was so strong, he was breaking chains, and nobody could restrain him. And this guy comes up to Jesus, and he recognizes that Jesus truly is the Son of God. And he says, "Oh, Son of God, why are you here to torment us?" And Jesus says, "Knock it off. Who are you? What's your name?" And they it was the evil spirit speaking through the man's vocal cords and mouth and said, "Our name is Legion because we
Right.
are many." And back in that day, a Roman legion of centurions was like 1,000 guys.
Right.
So the implication is there were literally hundreds upon hundreds of these evil spirits in this guy. And then they said, don't send us to the abyss before our time. Permit us just to go into the pigs, right? So Jesus gives permission. They go into the pigs, and the pigs flip out, and then they run off the cliff, and they all die. Now I'm saying, uh, to me, that says that now maybe it has to be explicit permission by Jesus himself, which would narrow it down, or is it's at least possible in some sense that an animal can be possessed by an intelligent, malevolent spirit, right? So if I'm analyzing this and I go, can a intelligent, malevolent spirit just at whim enter into an animal? Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's case specific. Jesus himself, they said, "Hey, send us into the pigs." Maybe they don't have that authority to do that, except that Jesus in that one instance did it. But we have an instance where an animal was inhabited by an intelligent, malevolent spirit. So taking this to the Son of Sam, I go, could it be that this guy was coming home to his dog? He's not imagining it. It's not that he's insane. There's a spirit speaking through his dog. And this guy's going, oh my goodness, the dog spoke. And he truly did.
Yeah.
And that spirit was telling him to go kill these folks. Uh, Now, that's way off what we were talking about. But
No, but I mean, you could be right. We won't know. We'll never know. How many people have been deemed insane, and it was just because we hadn't figured out the science yet.
yeah,
Yeah. So, well, James, we've been going for about an hour now. Time flies, man.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. You got me. Uh, I could start now that we're into. Like I said, my experience was well. Some people would say a Bigfoot encounter is spiritual. Right?
Yeah.
There's some people that would say that. Where my working thesis has always been that Bigfoot is he's a like everything else. He's a material creature. Um, some people uh, hypothesize that he's interdimensional, or that he can move from here to there. My working thesis, and like my book is that if Bigfoot is an animal, this part of the animal family, just like we are. We have flesh and bone, and we eat, and that there have been Bigfoot or big feet around for decades and hundreds of years. If that's the case, then there was a Bigfoot. There were Bigfoot or big feet back at the time of the Old West, and you're running into a living being there. Not that there's my story doesn't get into that the spiritual side of those who see Bigfoot that way, but like my personal story of the silhouette man with the knife, and it makes me I know people personally that have told me, a good friend of mine that I've known since the 80s, and he has told me, and I believe him, he was seeking getting into the occult, and he got in with some people. They'd go down by the train tracks in our town, and they'd get into an empty box car, and they were sacrificing animals, and doing that whole thing, making the pentagrams and all this. And he had some literature and things that he was getting into, and he was getting into an area of, I don't know what you would call it, but he told me he freaked himself out one night that he was looking at a pencil on his desk and trying to make it move, right? Doing a Jedi mind trick thing, like make the object move. And it moved. He said he's sitting there concentrating, staring at it. And he said it moved just a little bit, but it was an untouched uh, pencil that moved, and it freaked him out. And the other story he told me was that uh, with that same kind of power that he was trying to work on, him and his brother, their stepdad, who was a tough guy. I met him, I knew him, tough guy. And he told the boys, he said, "Get in the car, we're going to go somewhere." They didn't want to go. So they're in the back seat, and my friend is saying he's looking at the back of his stepdad's head, and he's staring at him. And they're driving down the road. They're going where the stepdad wanted to go. And he's staring at him, and he's saying, "You're going to turn around. You're going to turn this car around." And that stepdad turned around, and it freaked my friend out. And he's like, "What are we doing?" And the stepdad said, "We're going back home." And it scared him. I 100% believe this friend of mine, because he was like, it scared me out of that. I didn't want to go any further. I was like, what's happening here? But
Wow.
yeah.
Holy cow. Well, James, um, it has been a pleasure having you on my show. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find your books, or do you have a website?
Well, I have an author page on Amazon. So if
Okay.
you go to Amazon.com and you put in my name, so my real name is James Smith. That's not an alias. It's just the plain old James Smith. That's not a very good.
That's what everybody uses as an alias,
Yes.
Mr.
So
Smith.
my pen name, I needed a pen name. So my pen name is, because I'm a fireman, is James A. Fireman, but I spell it Fyerman. So that's my pen name. So if you put in James A. Fireman on Amazon, it'll take you to my author page. You can find my books there. That you can put in the book names also. You can put in Bigfoot in the Saddle or Breaker Ford, and it'll take you to that page. You can find me on Facebook, TikTok, I make little videos on TikTok, and you can find that there. But you can buy the books at Amazon.
All right.
And I will tell you too. My wife always tells me, I forget to say this. Those books are 100% me. So I do the writing and the illustration. So the cover art, that picture of Bigfoot
Oh,
on
wow.
the cover, that is, I'm old school. That is paint on canvas. There is an actual canvas with that. That is hand painted.
That's awesome.
And the illustrations inside, there's an illustration every chapter in Bigfoot, pen and ink style. I did those myself. And I love the old 1930s, 1940s pulp novels, Doc Savage and all those sort of things. And they always had pen and ink illustrations in there. So Bigfoot in the Saddle. Yeah, Bigfoot in the Saddle. Got every chapter has an illustration. That's right.
Wow. That's awesome. Well, James, once again, thanks for coming on Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. And
Thanks for having me on.
And if you've had a paranormal encounter you'd like to share, maybe you're an author. Maybe you didn't believe your kids when they said they had a Bigfoot encounter. You can come on Myths, Monsters, and Mullets and tell your story. You can contact me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. Till next time, talk to you later. Gotta go. And that's it for tonight. If you haven't yet, make sure you're checking out the descriptions on all my videos. You're going to find a list of all my favorite podcasts, from Nevermore Hollows, Drunken Cryptid, Chumming with the Spirits, Ghost Gossip, and so much more. And if you've had a paranormal encounter you'd like to share, you can email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. Good night, everyone.
Shadow in the pines, lurking in the dusky air. Bigfoot stomps through the woods like he don't care. Lights in the sky flash green then blue. Aliens descending with a secret or two. Whispers in the breeze, cold fingers down your spine. Ghosts in the graveyard, twisting through time. Eyes wide open in the dead of night. The myths and monsters giving one hell of a fright. Oh, Myths, Monsters, and Mullets podcast, spinning wild tales of a future and a past. Hosted by John Methencamp's fiery soul. He takes us where the wild unknown flows. Oh, Myths, Monsters, and Mullets podcast, spinning wild tales of a future and a past. Hosted by John Methencamp's fiery soul. He takes us where the wild unknown flows. Down by the bayou, you hear a raspy growl. Swamp gas glowing as the coyotes howl.